Hello, Elian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you already on the system?
I'm already there.
Okay, you can start sharing then. Let me just introduce you. Okay, so Kenneth Botha, welcome to the Dairy School. Kenneth will give a presentation on applied dairy nutrition. So Kenneth has been in the industry for more than 30 years, and he was involved in Afgri, in the research and development department, where after he joined NutriGenics, and he has been there for about 14 years, if I'm correct, Kenneth. And Kenneth is an absolute expert on animal nutrition, focusing especially on dairy and small stock. So Kenneth, we're looking forward to your presentation, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Elian, and good morning, everyone. Elian, can you see my presentation or not?
Not yet.
I did share it. Let me just quickly click on it again.
Okay, it's visible.
Can you see it? Because I can't see it on the screen.
Okay, now I can see it. You can just make it bigger.
Okay, let me just quickly optimize and start the presentation.
Perfect.
That's good. Okay, thanks everyone. Yes, if you hear specific noises, I'm standing between different farmers in the Western Cape. So I'm in my car, so sitting next to the road. So sorry for the noises that you may hear in between. But as a consultant, that's our lives. We are in between farmers and operations on farm level. So thank you for the opportunity. I will handle applied dairy nutrition. So that's a very broad topic to handle for an hour. So I will try and show you how we go about if we talk about nutrition on dairy farms by using a few examples and case studies to explain to you what do we do on dairy operations. So I will try and do that in 60 minutes, and we'll focus mainly on some things that we see on farms, roughages, the heifer growing part. I will handle through examples, as well as some of the other things that we experience and focus on a daily basis as dairy consultants and nutritionists on those farms. So I will start off by saying that applied nutrition is not how much nutrients do I calculate to feed to those animals. If we talk applied nutrition, then we have it's a very broad topic in the sense of its nutrient requirement for a specific animal. In this, let's talk about the dairy cow. It's the environment that she moves in, um, as well as what will some of the environmental things like mud or temperature or things like that, or milk solids affect the cow. Do we calculate that, or do we change our management? And then I will also talk about some technology and the data that we use if we talk about nutrition, is how do we apply that on a farm. So it's not just for me to sit behind my computer and calculating the requirements of an animal. If we talk nutrition and applied nutrition, it's also what will affect the digestibility as well as the utilization of a specific diet on a farm, and how to optimize a specific farm to really convert those nutrients that we get into those cows into milk solids, the health of the animal, and many more factors. So that's applied nutrition. So I'm not going to teach everyone today how to calculate the protein and the energy and the mineral requirements or the fiber in a diet, but rather talk about the many aspects that we look into when we talk about dairy nutrition. So by this time and the end of your program, after a few days, I'm sure that many people talked about the changes on dairy farms. A few years back, there was many dairy farms, smaller farms, but these days they are becoming or getting bigger and bigger by the day. And that's due to the narrow profit margins and the increased feed and labor costs, that we need to get more animals and more liters to pay for that specific cost that we have on the dairy operation. Um, we know that on many of these dairies, if I go back 30 years ago, the skills on those farms were not as high and comparable to what we see these days, where we have much more um, trained people and skilled people on dairy operations, just to make the efficiencies and focus on the efficiency. So people ask more questions and they focus really on small little things, just due to the skills that they have in comparison to a few years back. So farms are getting big. When I started 30 years ago, I had many clients who were between 40 and 60 cows. But these days, most of the operations are bigger than 600 cow units, just due to this, the reasons that I mentioned. So if we talk about applied nutrition, there's many things that plays a role. And this is just a few that I put into little blocks, and that is when we calculate the requirement of these animals, the genetics and the breed will play an effect. We know that, and I will show that through examples, that the farm and the farm management effects is big. So we really focus on that to optimize the diets. We know that the environmental effects is big, especially in South Africa, where we have a lot of mud and heat stress. So one cannot ignore these things if we calculate the nutrient requirement of a specific group of animals or a specific farm, for that matter. And all these things play a role when we also talk about the so there's many factors that we consider when we talk about the requirement of a specific group of animals. So if I'm just trying to get the next slide on, it's not moving forward. So Elaine, can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure that my signal is still good.
Kenneth, yes, we can still hear you.
Okay. Right. Okay, there it's going again. So to do this applied nutrition, we do it through structured advice, and I will show in the next slide. We are a team of people working on a specific farm. It's not just me as the nutritionist. It's actually the whole team on that farm that is doing a structured advice for every group of animal, to really make sure that we optimize the dry matter intake of a specific group of animals. We really focus on feed conversion because of the low margins in dairy operations. And then we also focus on many other aspects like feed bank management. How frequent do we feed those cows? Because cows, the way that they eat will impact on the digestibility of our ration. We look at the mineral levels, especially for specific groups like the pre-fresh group, where we talk about cationic and anionic diets to optimize the metabolic performance of that specific group. We look at particle size to ensure that we don't get sorting in our feed bunks, but I will talk more on these specific things later. We really focus a lot on acidosis, and all my herds that I'm working with know that we always, when we implement a diet, we always say just check the manure of the animals and to prevent or to make sure that we don't see acidosis, which I will show in slides a little bit later on, what's the negative impact of acidosis on these cows. Manure management, the additives that we use is quite a lot in dairy operations. We try and use as much as possible technology that will improve our digestibility of our rations as well as our feed conversion. So if I compare the amount of additives in a dairy operation in comparison to beef animals, it's really a lot of things that we add to that specific diet to improve digestibility and to decrease our cost for every liter that we produce, and that is from the feed or the ration cost. So we do use a lot of additives and buffers and things like that to improve the animals. And then we also in especially the TMR herds, which has cow houses, we focus also a lot on feeding behavior of those cows to ensure that cows has a good rumen health and they don't slug feed, for example, or the amount that they eat per day through systems that we measure them, optimizing our feeding behavior of specific groups, which I will explain also a little bit later through slides. So for that reason, in dairy operations, especially TMR herds, we use a lot of technology. For you guys that is working on those farms, or the young veterinarians that will go into these operations, you will see that dairy farmers do use a lot of capital to implement technology to really measure and follow cows on what's happening to them. So a lot of money that they spend. Everything to do with applied nutrition or precision feeding is the new buzzword. Is to optimize profits and to see problems well in advance before you see, for example, acidosis. You can see through these technologies problems coming before you see it in the bulk tank for the milk. So just one example that I want to show you for you that don't know Cow Manager. It's a little tag. You will see it in the left ear of the cow. There's a little orange tag. It's a system called Cow Manager. Many South African dairy farmers do use this system. It's actually following the activity of an animal. It has equations in to give us a prediction on rumination as well as body temperature. So every cow will send a specific signal within specific time frames to the computers, and we can follow a group of what's happening on a daily basis or actually hourly basis in specific groups. So if there's a problem with rumination or a low rumen pH, the system can pick those up very quickly and give you a report to show that there's outliers or there's a specific problem in a specific group, and then we can make adjustments or follow up at what is the problem or the challenge on that specific group, and to rectify that before the milk drops too much. So it's just technology that we use, very helpful for nutrition, because we see a lot of challenges, and we use that specific data then to change our management on the farm, or even our diets to really get these animals to perform more efficiently. So it's just technology that we use, very nice system that for us as nutritionists to see and follow animals. This is just a graph from a specific herd. If we look at this herd, this is the high producing first lactation animals, and you can see the green line is the eating time. That's the hours per day, and you can see, especially if you compare the intake of the ninth of that specific month, and you compare that to 2 or 3 days earlier, the intake was about 3 hours a day in comparison to 5 hours a day. So if we get this fluctuation from day to day, we know that the cows will not perform as what they can perform if we have a more consistent intake. So then we will drill into the detail and try and optimize the system or the feeding patterns or whatever on that specific farm to really get more consistency in those cows. It's not normal for cows to vary this much from a day-to-day basis. So this is just a way that we follow them. We can also, if you look at the brown line, the top line, that's the eating plus rumination time. So we follow that as well. If we can get cows to eat and ruminate for about 12.5 to 14 hours a day and more consistent, they are more efficient. So it's just some data indicating or showing you how we use this technology to really improve on a farm level. So it's using the data to rectify our nutrition, what we do on that specific farm, if we talk about applied nutrition. So even on pH, some of these systems will detect nutritional problems very quickly. It will detect sick cows. So if we have a challenge with acidosis and we have a lot of sick cows, the system will give us a report and actually outliers and show us that what's the percentage or the number of cows with specific health challenges, and that will give a signal to the manager or the owner of the dairy operation to say, here is a problem, or it's going well, and we apply the nutrition according to these systems. Some of them also give us a feeding and drinking behavior. Some of these systems is very accurate in giving us estimates on water intakes. It will give us information regarding acidosis and also, as I said, temperature on the animal. And you can see shifts also for group of animals when we have heat stress in that specific house or a group of animals. So if we talk about applied nutrition, we also use models as nutritionists, and there's many of them available around South Africa. I'm just showing you one of them, and that's the NDS program that I use. It's called the NDS Professional. It's based on research from the Cornell University, and equations was developed to estimate specific requirements for animals. For example, if we have a challenge with heat stress, the model will indicate to me what is the effect on the cow. So it's all research based. Nothing in these systems are thumbsuck. It's everything was modeled over years and years of research and feedback of when we have mud in the camp or heat stress or cows walking more to get feed. All those things are built into a model for me to make estimates and make management changes on a specific farm or a specific group to what my diet is supposed to look, as well as do management on that specific farm, feed management to really improve the feed efficiency on the farm. So for example, if I have heat stress, I don't just go and increase energy and protein in my diet. I rather go and optimize the system or the farm and get better intakes, or as I will show you later with examples, change the whole system to optimize the utilization of these cows. So we don't just throw more nutrients at the cows, we optimize the system, and that's what we do. To increase nutrients is easy, but it's expensive. So I rather go into my model and remodel the farm or the group of animals, or how we manage that specific group, instead of just adding more cost to the farmer, instead of in the sense of feeding more nutrients. So for example, this is just a group of animals on a specific farm. You will see we use a lot of data. So we use data of how old is those, the average of that group, what is the weight of those cows in a specific group, what's the production, the milk solids, lactose included, the days in milk, and then even if it's a later lactation group and I need to get some extra daily gain on those cows to get to a specific target on body condition, we need to formulate that and just optimize our diet according to their requirements. If you look at the data that we also use for the environment, you will see we use temperatures. We also use humidity, because we all know, and I'm sure that the veterinarians that's sitting into this meeting will know that temperature and humidity play a role. Not only temperature. If I go to a farm with a 40 degrees centigrade temperature and the humidity is 30, the cows don't experience the same level of heat stress in comparison to when the humidity is close to 90 or 92, as some of the herds formulating for in Sri Lanka. So humidity does play a role. You will know that if you go to the Karoo on a warm day or hot day, it's different if the temperature is the same in comparison when you go to KZN, to Durban, for example, where the humidity is high. That effect of heat plus humidity is extremely important, and for a dairy cow, much more important if I compare that to humans. So we look at temperatures, we look at night temperatures. Will it be below 20 degrees centigrade? Will the cows cool down in the evening? We also look at mud conditions. Are the cows panting if it's heat stress? Because then they utilize energy for something else instead of producing milk and milk solids. We also look at distance, and many people don't realize that. But if I go to a group of animals in a cow house, they walk about 2.5 kilometers. But if I compare that to some of my pasture-based herds, we know that those cows are even are walking up to 8 kilometers a day, and we need to calculate that into their requirement. So I will never, for example, on a high-producing pasture herd, let the high-producing cows walk to the far paddock for feed. I will let them go to the paddocks closer to the milk parlor to have a shorter distance, because we know for every kilometer a cow walks, she requires about a liter's equivalent of energy. So if they walk 8 kilometers a day, they utilize the equivalent, the energy equivalent to 8 liters of milk. So if I can change that specific farm to optimize some of the high producing groups, I will change everything according to the model to optimize our diets. So for you guys that's familiar with all the analysis that we do these days, or for you that don't, we do a lot of analysis up to digestibility level of the different sources that we use in dairy feeds. So it's not thumb suck. We really focus on digestibility of the NDF and starches and all the protein pools, because all those things play a role of how are they going to utilize my specific diet. I can't just increase protein like in the old days, because cows will use that or use energy to get rid of all excess nutrients. So I don't want to do that, so especially proteins. So the diet must be optimized, and for that to be done, I need to do a lot of analysis on all my sources. Most of mine is going overseas because it's just quicker for me and more cost effective. So I can't send samples away this week and only get that back next month. I need to get the samples back with the analysis and the reports back within a few days to really optimize all my diet. So this is just some examples. So getting back to applied nutrition, as I said, nutrition is expensive, or nutrients is expensive on a farm. So these days it's 65 to 75% of the income will go towards the feed cost of those animals on a dairy operation, and therefore we work as a team to really get these figures lower to optimize profits. So you will see I used team 3 times because it's so important for me as a nutritionist to work with the rest of the team, not only the owner and the manager, but also get the veterinarian to give feedback. What does the veterinarian see? When you guys go on farm in the future and become a veterinarian of a specific operation, it's so important for you to know that you need to work in a group. And if I compare the teams on farms these days in comparison to 30 years ago, everyone was working on little islands 30 years ago, but these days everyone is almost like a team, a rugby team, and does have his role to play, which is very important to get everyone's input of what they see on the farm whenever they visit the farm or do preg test or whatever. We need to talk to each other to really optimize. So the consultant, the veterinarian, the nutritionist, the genetic advisor, and even the financial advisors on farms are working towards the same goal. And that's if we talk applied nutrition, we need to have a specific goal for a specific farm, and everyone on that farm needs to know exactly what our goals are, so that we focus on the same things to optimize. It's so important. So it's so nice these days for me when veterinarians leave or any other advisor leave that specific farm. They always phone me to say what's their feedback, and the same for me when I leave. I phone them to see what did I see during the visit and what do I need to change, so that everyone is on the same page. So important if we talk nutrition. So to do that, let me show you a few examples, then you will see how do we change diets, or how do we apply our knowledge when we have challenges on a farm. So the first one is a case study that was in Mpumalanga area. There's a Middelburg farm milking 200 Holstein cows. They phoned me to say the cows are not performing on the same level in comparison to the previous year. They were about 3 liters down, and they had a very low milk fat percentage, which had a negative impact on their milk price. So I had to go into this onto this farm and see, can I give them advice on what to change. Normally, or in the past, people would just say, let's add buffers and let's add more roughage to the diet, instead of applying all our knowledge and the farm information to change the approach. So in this study, and sorry it's small, so I hope you all can see that in your screens. This was just on our model. So there was a specific diet, as they indicated to me what was the recommendation of their nutritionist. Um, and the diet actually was enough to give about 42 and a half liters regarding energy, and there was oversupply of protein, that 47.51 where my cursor is. That is actually the allowable milk that they will get from protein. So you will see the first restriction where the animals will probably perform is the 42.5 liter. The excess protein will be excreted in this case. What I also see on this specific diet is the NFC was quite high. That's the non-fibrous carbohydrates. So too much carbohydrates in the diet, according to my model. And also the PNF, that's the physical effective NDF. So we formulate what's the amount of NDF with a specific particle size that will give us that rumen mat and stimulate rumination and saliva flow for the animals. So we have specific parameters that we formulate for. So, for example, we don't go over 44 NFC normally, or when we have to go that high, we use a lot of buffers to make sure that the cow is not acidotic. And also on the physical effective NF, our aim is to get towards a 22 to have enough fiber in there to form that rumen mat for them to ruminate. So the feed efficiency on this farm was at that stage 1.29 kilograms of energy corrected milk for every kilogram that they utilize, or that the intake of that specific week were when I was there. So a little bit too low on feed efficiency. So that will increase our cost of the diet for every liter that we produce. That's one thing that I saw. The next thing that I saw on that farm during my visit is there's a lot of or a lot of mucus membranes in the feces, and the feces was really loose and watery during my visit. So definitely some indication that there is something wrong with the diet and the effective fiber. That's possible. The possibility was also there for the main reason why we saw that low production in the animals. But let's drill into the detail further. I also did a Penn State sieve test. That's just a sieve that we use. We put the TMR onto the top screen, shake it in a very specific way according to the developers, and then get specific percentages that we weigh of the TMR. So TMR will go into that top box, we shake it, and then on the different screens you get these different particle sizes. The top screen is around 17 millimeters, the middle one is around 7, and then everything finer than 7 is in the pan. So this was the percentages that I saw during the day that I was in the high producing cows. You will see 5.5% of the diet was longer fiber, 21.1 the middle fraction, and then a lot of concentrates or fine particles in the bottom pan. If you ask me what's the ideal, then we always try to get like in the green boxes here, you will see we try to get in the top screen 6 to 12%, and the middle screen 30 to 50, and lower than 60 in the bottom. So comparing that to this diet was did not had enough long fiber in to really stimulate rumination. So it's not only on paper that the diet was low in effective fiber. The TMR was also too fine, and we had to make some changes to make sure that we get more longer fiber. So if you ask me, how do we do that? I just put the different roughages into the mixer wagon. So let's say, for example, we have the lucerne into the mixer late or early, and it stands there for an hour and mixing and cutting in the feeder wagon. I will shift that lucerne to later in the mix, so that perhaps it's only standing there for half an hour in fine grinding, and shift that particle size to a longer fiber. But we also don't want it to have too long, because the cow can then sort, which is also negative. So it's a very fine balance that we use and focus on. I also took 25 grab samples from the manure from the high producing cows, and then did some manure washing, and you will see the left side is the finer particles. On the right side of your screen you will see the coarser particles, and normally it's a very subjective way of evaluating manure, but we all